Hey guys, back to take a look at the new LED fixtures I've been making for my indoor microgrow. And so last time we ended off where I made this design, kind of a last second aha moment, realizing that I could do it without any glue or solder or welding. And definitely go check it out. It's at the end of the previous part in this series. The epoxy didn't fail. I went ahead and took one of those apart, and it wasn't too difficult to break off the epoxy. Like I said, aluminum's not really a great surface for it to bind to. And it held on pretty well, but I was able to snap it off, and I just used a razor blade to clean off any remaining stuff. So I went ahead and went and made that design you guys just saw. So here it is. The two boards, the QB120s. And yeah, so all we did was cut another piece of aluminum angle, attached it to the board on the corners, cut a hole through that angle in the center, fed a bolt through that, then lock that bolt in with a jam nut and a locking washer. So that's down there. And then fed it through a hole in the frame. Again, if you cut these holes close enough in tolerance, you don't actually need this nut and washer and this nut out, here. It will work just fine without that. I added it actually to give it some tension onto the frame to help stabilize it even more. So if I tighten these, down, it really, let's see, what is it doing? It's pushing in this case. So there you go. In this particular case, since it's all kind of tensioned, you don't need any Teflon tape or anything inside of the nut to give it the stability so it doesn't, randomly turn around. Like you guys saw in the previous part, it was very loose. In this case, since it's tensioned, it's the opposite. It stays exactly in place wherever you want it. So on this other side, I did kind of the opposite, where I put the nut on the inside rather than the outside. Same exact thing, except for here, instead of compressing the frame, it's expanding it out. Doesn't really matter, it's not very tight, it's not actually putting significant stress, it's just barely finger tight. Kind of like the wing nut on the outside better, just easy adjustment if you need to. So I used 2-inch bolt here. As you can clearly see, I overshot it. What I need is 1.5 or 1 1/4 would be ideal. Maybe you could get away with 1 inch if you close this gap a little bit more, made the frame a little smaller. Or, just had this idea, you could just flip it. Put the bolt head on the outside and this wing nut and spare bit of bolt on the inside here, so from the outside you wouldn't see anything and you wouldn't have this catch point here. Unless you use this to hang your actual frame, that wouldn't be a bad hanging position there. It's all built and ready to go into one of the tents. The other one's been hanging up for a while. We can use the lux meter on the phone to do some rough tests to see how the angle would affect the intensity, whether we could get rid of the drop in intensity you would kind of expect in between the two boards, in between the hot spots. So I like that it's not much work, doesn't cost much here. In fact, if you make the frame a little bit smaller, so take off maybe 2 inches here and a little bit on this side, the same thing on the other corners, you can get 2 of these 9.5-inch pieces to make the frame for the board, this supporting frame. You can make that out of the scrap piece. So you get a 48-inch long piece, and you cut the long one, you cut the short one for the outer frame, and the leftover bit should be almost exactly the size if you get the math right there. but if you're doing 2 boards per fixture, you'll still need to get an extra one because you'll only have 2 of these spare pieces, not 4. Alright, so yeah, really excited about this. Came out really well. I'm gonna go ahead and put the wiring in and hang it up today. Alright, so I just made one small change and reversed the order of the bolt setup here. So basically the bolt head is now outside the frame, and I was kind of experimenting with different washer and nut combos, and it seems like all you need is two nuts and 1 locking washer, but probably you don't even really need that here. And so this nut here is really doesn't do anything. You could like lock it in here, but it's not gonna make any effect. So I like this way, there's nothing sticking out from the edge, and I went ahead and wired it in just through the Molex connectors and ready to plug in into the driver. Alright, so here's the new and improved little power station I got for my LEDs. We got the 2 Meanwell HLG 100H48As. Again, 100 watt drivers or 48 volts at around 2 amps. And we have our connectors there for the 2 different fixtures. And their plugs, power strip, and our temperature controller with heat and cool plugs there as well, and the temperature sensor, of course. So yeah, there you go. Nice tight little setup. I just got a thin piece of galvanized metal there. I don't know, it's like a 32nd or something like that. Even thinner. And yeah, these guys really don't put out a lot of heat. So you could store them inside of your tent, not an issue. They're waterproof, and yeah, I think I'm gonna just keep it on the top of my tent. Alright guys, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.